Thank you so much, and I'm so excited to be here. So shifting gears a little bit, I'm going to talk a little bit about the news. And the refrain that commonly comes up when we're talking about the news these days is that it is in crisis. People aren't reading newspapers. They're going online. The newspapers aren't making as much money as they were, and so democracy is in peril because we don't have an informed public like we used to. We also have things like Craigslist that are eating up all the classified advertisements because it's not only a way more efficient system, but it's free. But I'm here to say that actually the news is in a better position than it's ever been before. The Fourth Estate has never been stronger, and as a result, we're reaping the benefits through our democracy. So here's how. So for the past 1,000 years and even longer, in an unorganized fashion, we've trusted self-appointed authorities to tell us what the news is. Some countries have done it better than others. We've also seen some amazing innovations, like the printing press, that has made it possible. But on the whole, news has been a passive experience. The thing that's changed this, you'll see in a second. So what's wrong with news being a passive experience? Well, when you start to think about news as the Fourth Estate, and this concept, just to refresh your memory, is that in addition to these pillars of democracy, the legislative branch, judicial, executive, there is this fourth branch that we call the Fourth Estate that watches over all of the other ones to make sure they're doing their job. And that is the press. And today it's made up not just of conventional news organizations, but of bloggers, citizen journalists, and you could even say commenters and tweeters who you see online. What does it look like? A little bit more on the Fourth Estate. One of the earliest mentions was back in 1841. You see Thomas Carlyle mentioned that it's even more important than all the other branches. And now here we've seen in many ways that it's sort of come to fruition more than we could have ever imagined. Initially, when the internet created in 1982, and it steadily has grown in influence to become a backbone of the information economy, news organizations weren't really sure how they fit into this. And finally they said, okay, well, I can expand my audience by broadcasting out my message to all these people. But what they didn't realize was that the people would begin telling each other what the news is. Sort of turn the whole thing upside down. Some recent examples. Recently when we saw a plane land in the Hudson River, the first photo came from Janice Crooms, who posted it on Twitter using something called TwitPic. On Facebook, we've seen people sharing information and organizing demonstrations through Facebook, another piece of social media that allows them to actively engage in democracy. And YouTube has been an incredibly powerful force. You see Californians who are acting as the press themselves by uploading hundreds of videos about forest fires. And then the craziest thing is there are now organizations that people have created that empower only citizens. They're entirely staffed by citizens who tell the news. One of these is Ground Report, and that's the platform that I founded in 2006 where anyone can upload a news report, and then our own community judges what belongs on the site and publishes the best work. We've seen our own examples. During the 2008 elections, we had over 100 videos of people documenting their voter experience, a very historical day. We've seen Iranian citizens uploaded photos when there was a media blackout during the demonstrations. Incredible work. And apparently, I actually missed this when it first happened. I found out about a month later that an Afghani reporter said a woman's life had been saved because he published a story about a gruesome incident of spousal abuse, and medical and care organizations contacted him and paid for her medical care. And this is a person whose story never would have reached that kind of scale to see that change. And usually what happens after this point, people say, okay, it's great, we see all of the wonderful things that can happen, but can you really trust it? How do you know people aren't making up stories? How can you add a little bit of organization to this? It's chaos, it's anarchy, and the thing is that the most successful platforms doing this have immense amounts of organization and a hierarchy. Wikipedia has been great at this. They deputize their best users, and they act as the guards of what is able to be published. On the Huffington Post, Arianna Huffington has said that her biggest regret was that she didn't first start the site by pre-approving all comments, because that helped to set the tone for engagement. And on Ground Report, all we've done is sort of add these layers of moderation. So now we've deputized our users to be super users who are able to approve and reject other people's content and edit the site as if it were Wikipedia. And we also allow the community to report any abuse they might see. So what are the new rules? This is a big, scary place, and what governs what's happening in the space now? Well, the first piece is the means of production are ubiquitous. If you have a cell phone, if you have any kind of device in your purse or your bag right now or in your jacket, you are part of this fourth estate, or you have the potential to be part of this fourth estate. And not only that, you can distribute your message. You don't just create the report, you don't just actively report on it, but you can engage others in it. It's free to set up a blog. You can comment in Twitter for nothing at all. The other interesting aspect is through Twitter and other platforms, the news is now real time. We don't wait until tomorrow morning to find out what happened yesterday. We know within seconds, and we tell each other even faster than conventional news organizations could tell us within seconds. Another interesting piece is that instead of, if you look at some of the most recent studies on how people trust the press in the US, it's not very good. People don't trust the press in the US. Pew reports on Internet Life and Society have shown this recently. But what happens with citizen journalism is actually, even if there is bias, if you know where it's coming from, you're more inclined to trust it. So you say, what are your affiliations? What organizations do you work with? And you know what? Maybe I will actually trust what you're saying even more because I know where you're coming from. I at least know what your agenda is. And one of the most interesting pieces is Esther Dyson, who's actually writing on Huffington Post, said recently, we are all fact checkers now. It's not a very highbrow example, but with the Balloon Boy fiasco, you had thousands, hundreds of thousands of people online immediately during the event who were checking the track records of Richard Heen and saying, you know what, this guy, something's a little fishy here. People were already engaging in this fact-checking process themselves, and it happens across the board. So we're all engaged in that aspect. So it's called user-generated content, it's called citizen journalism, but what it really is a new iteration of the fourth estate. It's people contributing to democracy. And what happened when I was researching the term is that the first mention of this term, the fourth estate, comes from 1752, and it did not refer to the press. It says, our political writers pass by in silence that very large and powerful body which forms the fourth estate in this community, the mob. Maybe not the most flattering way of referring to it, but it's the crowd. It's the actual public who are contributing and making up this fourth estate. So my final question is, how did you act as the fourth estate today, and how will you act as it tomorrow? Thank you so much.